My in-laws turned me into their maid while my husband was away for work. They took advantage of me for 2 years until I exploded. Now we're rebuilding our lives on the other side of the world. I, 28F, have been married to Jack, 31M, for 6 years now. We met in college, I was an art major, and he was studying international business. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of travel and adventure. After graduation, we dated for 2 years before tying the knot in a small, intimate ceremony. Jack's always been ambitious, constantly seeking new challenges and opportunities. I admired that about him, even though it sometimes meant sacrificing our time together. When we first got married, he took a job that required frequent travel. It was tough, but we made it work. We'd have amazing reunions when he came home, and I focused on building my career as a graphic designer. 2 years into our marriage, we had our daughter, Lily. She was a surprise, but a welcome one. Jack cut back on his travel to be there for us, and for a while, everything was perfect. We were young parents, figuring things out together with the support of both our families. My parents passed away when I was in college. My dad from a heart attack and my mom from cancer 2 years later. It was a difficult time, and Jack was my rock through it all. His parents, Lisa and Tom, stepped up and became like second parents to me. They were there for our wedding, the birth of Lily, and all the moments in between. I grew to love them like my own family. 2 years ago, when Lily was 2, Jack got an amazing job opportunity in Japan. It was a 3-year contract with a prestigious international firm, his dream job. Initially, we planned to move as a family. I was excited about the adventure, the chance to experience a new culture. We started looking at international schools for Lily and housing options in Tokyo. That's when Lisa, my mother-in-law, stepped in. She's always been a bit overprotective, especially when it comes to Lily. She convinced us it would be better for Lily to stay in a stable environment. She argued that moving to a foreign country at such a young age could be traumatic, that Lily needed consistency and familiarity. Tom, my father-in-law, backed her up. He's always been more laid back, usually deferring to Lisa's judgment. He pointed out the practical aspects, the cost of international schools, the difficulty of me finding work in a country where I didn't speak the language. Jack and I spent weeks discussing it. We were torn. On one hand, we wanted to stay together as a family. On the other, we wanted what was best for Lily. In the end, we decided I'd stay back with Lily. It was a heart-wrenching decision, but we thought it was the right one. That's when Lisa suggested I move in with them. She painted a rosy picture. I'd have help with Lily, they'd have company, and we'd be one big happy family. She talked about how she'd always wanted a daughter, how this would give us a chance to bond even more. Tom nodded along, adding that it would be easier financially too. I hesitated at first. I valued my independence, and the thought of living with my in-laws was a bit daunting. But Lisa was persistent. She brought up my parents, saying how they would have wanted me to have a support system. It was a low blow, but it worked. I agreed, thinking it would be a temporary arrangement until I figured out a more permanent solution. The first few months were great. Lisa and Tom were helpful and kind. They doted on Lily, giving me time to work and even have some time for myself. Lisa would cook elaborate meals, insisting I relax after work. Tom would take Lily to the park, giving me quiet time to focus on my freelance projects. But slowly, things started to change. It was subtle at first, Lisa asking me to do a few chores here and there. She'd say things like, "Oh, since you're already in the kitchen, could you whip up dinner?" Or, "I'm so tired from watching Lily, would you mind doing the laundry?" I didn't mind helping out, so I agreed. But the requests kept coming, more and more frequently. Soon I found myself doing all the housework, cooking every meal, and taking care of Lily full-time, all while trying to maintain my freelance graphic design work. Lisa would criticize my cleaning, saying I didn't do it right. She'd hover over me while I cooked, pointing out everything I was doing wrong. Tom wasn't much help. He'd shrug and say, "That's just how Lisa is. You know she means well." He started spending more time out of the house, claiming he needed to help a friend with some project or another. Whenever I tried to talk to Lisa about it, she'd guilt-trip me. She'd bring up how they were giving me a place to stay rent-free, how they were helping with Lily. She'd say things like, "We're not getting any younger, you know. It's only fair that you help out more." Or, "When I was your age, I was managing a household and working full-time. You young people have it so easy these days." I felt trapped and didn't know what to do. I couldn't tell Jack because I didn't want to cause problems between him and his parents. Plus, Lisa and Tom always acted perfectly nice whenever Jack visited or video called. They'd praise me to him, talking about what a wonderful mother I was and how helpful I'd been around the house. It made me feel like I was going crazy, like maybe I was the problem. I kept hoping things would get better, but they only got worse. Lisa started criticizing my parenting, saying I was too lenient with Lily. She'd undermine my decisions, giving Lily sweets when I'd said no, or letting her stay up past her bedtime. When I'd confront her about it, she'd say, "I raised 2 children successfully. I think I know what I'm doing." The stress started affecting my work. I was constantly exhausted, struggling to meet deadlines. My clients started to notice, and I lost a few important contracts. When I told Lisa I needed more time to work, she scoffed and said, "Maybe if you manage your time better, you wouldn't have these problems." Last week, everything came to a head. Lisa and Tom announced they were going on a week-long vacation. I was looking forward to having the house to myself, thinking I could finally catch up on work and have some quality time with Lily. But then Lisa handed me a long list of chores to do while they were gone. The list was ridiculous. She wanted me to deep clean the entire house, repaint the guest bedroom, organize their attic, and even clean out the gutters, all while working and taking care of Lily. When I told her it was too much, she said, "Well, we've been taking care of you for 2 years. The least you could do is help out while we're away." Something in me just snapped. All the frustration, resentment, and anger I'd been bottling up for 2 years came pouring out. I yelled at Lisa, calling her out on her behavior. I told her I wasn't their maid or their babysitter and that I was done being taken advantage of. I said they'd turned me into a glorified housekeeper and that this wasn't what we'd agreed to when I moved in. Tom tried to intervene, telling me to calm down, but I was too angry to stop. I told him he was just as bad, always looking the other way and never standing up to Lisa. I said they'd both taken advantage of my situation, knowing I had nowhere else to go. Lisa started crying, saying I was ungrateful and that she'd only ever tried to help. Tom raised his voice, telling me I was out of line. In that moment, I knew I couldn't stay there anymore. I grabbed Lily, threw some clothes in a bag, and left. I've been staying at a hotel for the past week. I finally broke down and told Jack everything. He was furious and is flying back next week to deal with the situation. His parents have been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between apologies and accusations. Lisa's been leaving tearful voicemails, saying she doesn't understand why I'm doing this to them. Tom's been texting, saying I'm tearing the family apart and that I need to come back and apologize. I feel guilty for keeping this from Jack for so long, but I'm also relieved that everything's out in the open now. I don't know what's going to happen when Jack gets here, but I know I can't go back to living with his parents. I'm scared about what this means for our future, but I'm also determined not to be a doormat anymore. Am I overreacting? Should I have handled this differently? I'm lost and could use some advice. Update 1. It's been a week since my last post, and so much has happened that I hardly know where to begin. Jack arrived 3 days ago, and it's been a whirlwind of emotions and confrontations since then. The day after Jack arrived, we went to his parents' house to talk things out. I was a nervous wreck the entire drive there. My hands were shaking so badly that Jack had to take my phone away because I kept dropping it. He held my hand the entire time, which gave me strength. He kept reassuring me that we were in this together, that he had my back no matter what. As soon as we walked in, Lisa burst into tears and tried to hug me. I instinctively stepped back, and Jack immediately stepped in front of me. He said we needed to have a serious conversation, and his tone left no room for argument. Tom ushered us all into the living room, where we sat in uncomfortable silence for a few moments. Jack started by expressing his disappointment in his parents. He told them how hurt and angry he was that they had taken advantage of me while he was away. He talked about how he'd trusted them to support me and Lily, not to turn me into their personal housekeeper. Lisa tried to interrupt, but Jack shut her down, saying he wasn't finished. Then he turned to me and apologized. It was unexpected and emotional. He said he was sorry for not noticing what was happening, for not being there when I needed him. He admitted that he'd been so focused on his career that he'd neglected his responsibilities as a husband and father. It was hard to hear, but I appreciated his honesty. I assured him it wasn't his fault, but I could see the guilt in his eyes. When it was Lisa and Tom's turn to speak, things got heated. Lisa tried to downplay the situation, saying I had misunderstood her intentions. She claimed she was just trying to teach me how to run a household efficiently, that she saw me struggling and wanted to help. She brought up her own mother, talking about how she'd learned everything from her and wanted to pass that knowledge on to me. Tom mostly stayed quiet, occasionally nodding along with Lisa. When Jack pressed him, he mumbled something about not wanting to get involved in women's business. This infuriated both Jack and me, and Jack told his father that his passivity was just as harmful as Lisa's actions. I couldn't hold back anymore. I listed out every incident over the past 2 years: the increasing chores, the guilt tripping, the snide comments about my parenting. I told them how isolated and used I felt, how their actions had affected my work and my relationship with Lily. I talked about the times I'd cried myself to sleep, feeling like I had nowhere to turn. Lisa's face went from defensive to shocked as I spoke. I think she genuinely didn't realize how her actions had affected me. She tried to interject a few times, but Jack silenced her with a look. When I finished, there was a heavy silence in the room. Tom finally spoke up, admitting that they had taken me for granted. He apologized, saying they had become too comfortable with the arrangement. He talked about how they'd always wanted a big family, and how having me and Lily there had fulfilled that dream for them. He acknowledged that they'd gone about it the wrong way. Lisa, however, was still resistant. She accused me of being ungrateful and dramatizing things. She brought up everything she'd done for me: the meals she'd cooked, the times she'd watched Lily. She said she'd treated me like a daughter, and this was how I repaid her. That's when Jack lost it. He stood up, his face red with anger, and told his parents that their behavior was unacceptable. He said if they couldn't see how wrong they were, then we would have no choice but to cut contact. He talked about how they'd taken advantage of my kindness and my situation, how they'd manipulated me using my grief over my parents. Lisa started crying again, begging Jack not to do this. She said we were family, that families work through their problems. Tom tried to calm everyone down, suggesting we all take a break and come back to the conversation later. But Jack was done. He said we needed time and space away from them. He told them not to contact us, that we'd reach out when we were ready. Lisa tried to argue, but Jack was firm. We left shortly after with the situation unresolved. The next couple of days were intense. Jack and I spent hours talking about our future. We both realized we'd made mistakes, me in not speaking up sooner, him in not being more present. We talked about our communication, our expectations, our fears. It was hard, but it felt like we were finally on the same page. We've decided that I'll move to Japan with Lily as soon as we can arrange it. Jack is going to request an extension on his contract, and we'll stay there for at least another year. We both feel like we need a fresh start, away from the influence of his parents. As for his parents, Jack has decided to take a break from them. He's hurt and angry and needs time to process everything. Lisa has been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between apologies and guilt tripping. She's left voicemails crying about how we're breaking her heart, how she doesn't understand why we're punishing her. Tom has sent a few texts, mostly asking Jack to reconsider, saying that Lisa is a mess and they need to talk. We've decided to block their numbers for now. I feel a mix of relief and sadness. I'm glad everything's out in the open, and I'm excited about our fresh start in Japan. But I'm also sad that it had to come to this. Jack is struggling with his decision to distance himself from his parents. He's angry at them, but he also feels guilty. He's talked about how they've always been a close-knit family, how this rift is something he never imagined would happen. We're taking things one day at a time. There's a lot to organize for our move, but we're facing it together. Jack has been incredibly supportive, handling most of the logistics so I can focus on Lily and my work. We're both nervous about the move, about starting over in a new country, but we're also excited about the possibilities. I'll update again once we're settled in Japan. Thank you all for your support and advice. It's been a difficult journey, but I feel like we're finally moving in the right direction. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and we're finally settled in Japan. The move was hectic, but worth it. Lily is adjusting well to her new preschool, making friends despite the language barrier. Her resilience amazes me every day. I found a job at a local design firm, which has been both challenging and rewarding. The language barrier is tough, but my colleagues are patient and helpful. Jack's work has been supportive of our situation, and they've even helped with our relocation. Before we left, we had one final meeting with Jack's parents. It was Jack's idea. He wanted to give them a chance to make amends before we left the country. I was hesitant, remembering the emotional turmoil of our last encounter, but I agreed for his sake. I could see how torn he was about leaving things unresolved. We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe near our old neighborhood. As soon as we walked in, I could feel the tension in the air. Lisa looked like she hadn't slept in weeks, her eyes red and puffy. Tom seemed uncomfortable, fidgeting with his coffee cup and avoiding eye contact. The meeting was tense from the start. Lisa began by apologizing, saying she had done a lot of thinking and realized how her actions had affected me. She claimed she never meant to hurt me and that she had always considered me a daughter. She talked about her own upbringing, how her mother had been strict and demanding, and how she thought she was doing the right thing by teaching me as her mother had taught her. Tom echoed her sentiments, adding that they were both ashamed of their behavior. He admitted that he should have stepped in sooner, that his passivity had allowed the situation to escalate. He talked about how much he missed Lily and how sorry he was that his actions might have damaged his relationship with his granddaughter. I appreciated their apologies, but I made it clear that it would take time for me to trust them again. The hurt was still too fresh, the memories too painful. Jack supported me, telling his parents that while he was glad they were taking responsibility, actions speak louder than words. We set some ground rules for our future interactions. We agreed to limited contact for now, monthly video calls with Lily, but no unsupervised time with her. We also made it clear that any future visits would involve staying at a hotel, not in their home or ours. Jack explained that we needed time and space to heal as a family unit. Lisa didn't take this well. She started crying, saying we were punishing them too harshly. She brought up all the times she'd been there for us. When Jack and I first started dating, when we got married, when Lily was born. She accused me of turning Jack against them, of poisoning Lily's mind against her grandparents. That's when Jack stepped in. He told them firmly that this was his decision too, and if they couldn't respect our boundaries, we would cut contact completely. They reluctantly agreed to our terms, though I could see the hurt and resentment in Lisa's eyes. As we were leaving, Lisa hugged Jack tightly, whispering something in his ear. Later, he told me she had said, "Please don't forget we're your parents." It was emotionally manipulative, but Jack saw right through it. Since we've been in Japan, Lisa and Tom have respected our wishes for the most part. They've had 2 video calls with Lily, which went okay. Lisa tried to guilt-trip Jack once about missing his childhood home, but he shut it down quickly. It's been a learning process for all of us. I'm still processing everything that happened, Ned, but I feel stronger now. Jack and I are in a good place, and our communication has improved significantly. We're both in individual counseling to work through our issues. It's been helpful to have an objective perspective on everything that's happened. Living in Japan has been an adjustment, but a welcome one. The culture shock was real at first, from the crowded trains to the complex social etiquette. But there's also a sense of peace here that I never felt back home. Maybe it's the distance from all the drama, or maybe it's just the fresh start we needed. Lily is thriving in her new environment. She's picking up Japanese faster than Jack and I, often acting as our little translator. Seeing her excitement about everything, from the cherry blossoms to the local festivals, reminds me why we made this decision. Work has been challenging but fulfilling. My colleagues have been incredibly welcoming, often inviting us to local events or recommending places to visit. It's helping us feel more connected to our new community. Jack and I have been exploring Tokyo together on weekends, rediscovering the sense of adventure that brought us together in the first place. It feels like we're dating again, experiencing new things and creating memories just the two of us. And Lily, of course. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. While I don't think my relationship with Lisa and Tom will ever be the same, I'm hopeful that we can establish a healthier dynamic over time. For now, I'm focusing on our little family and our new life in Japan. There are still moments when I miss home, when I wish things had turned out differently with Jack's parents. But then I look at how happy Lily is, how much stronger my relationship with Jack has become, and I know we made the right choice. We're building a life here, one day at a time, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. Update 3. It's been 6 months since we moved to Japan, and I wanted to give a final update on our situation. Life here has been challenging but rewarding. Lily is now fluent in Japanese and loves her school. She's made a group of friends and is constantly teaching us new words and customs she's learned. I've been promoted at work, taking on more responsibility in our international projects. Jack's project is going well, and he's been recognized for his contributions to the company. As for the situation with Jack's parents, things have been complicated. We've maintained the monthly video calls, and for the most part, they've respected our boundaries. Lisa has been trying to show interest in our new life, asking about Lily's school and our jobs. Tom usually sits quietly in the background, occasionally chiming in with a question or comment. However, last month we had an incident that showed us there's still a long way to go. Lisa and Tom announced they had booked tickets to visit us in Japan. They hadn't consulted us first, assuming we'd be happy about the surprise. Jack and I were caught off guard. We reminded them of our agreement about visits, but they insisted they'd stay in a hotel and wouldn't impose. After a long discussion, Jack and I agreed to let them visit, but we set strict guidelines. They could see Lily, but always with one of us present. We'd meet in public places or at our apartment, but they weren't to stay over or babysit. The visit was tense from the start. Lisa kept making comments about how she missed having Lily around and how she wished we'd move back. She brought gifts for Lily, clothes that were too small and toys she'd outgrown. It felt like she was trying to freeze time, to pretend the last 6 months hadn't happened. Tom was more respectful of our boundaries, but he too seemed disappointed by the limited time with Lily. He made a few comments about how different Japan was, how he couldn't understand why we'd want to live so far from home. We tried to show them our life here, our favorite parks, the local festivals, the beautiful temples. But it felt like they weren't really seeing it. They were too focused on what they'd lost to appreciate what we'd gained. On their last day, Lisa broke down. She accused us of being cruel and keeping her grandchild away from her. She said she'd changed and deserved another chance. She brought up all the times she'd been there for us in the past, as if that negated everything that had happened. Jack remained firm, reminding her that trust takes time to rebuild. He told her that we were happy here, that this was our home now. Lisa didn't take it well, storming out of the restaurant where we were having our final dinner. After they left, Jack and I had a long talk. We realized that while we've moved forward, his parents are still stuck in the past. They want things to go back to how they were, but that's not possible. We've grown and changed, and our relationship with them needs to evolve too. We've decided to reduce contact even further. We're scaling back to quarterly video calls and have made it clear that any future visits need to be discussed and agreed upon well in advance. It's a hard decision, but we feel it's necessary for our peace of mind. It's been a difficult journey, but I'm proud of how far we've come. Jack has been my rock through all of this, and our relationship is stronger than ever. We're focusing on our life here in Japan and on giving Lily the best childhood we can. There are still moments of doubt, times when I wonder if we're doing the right thing. But then I see Lily laughing with her friends, or Jack and I exploring a new part of the city, and I know we're where we're meant to be. We're building a life here, one that's uniquely ours. I want to thank everyone who's followed our story and offered advice. Your support has meant the world to me. While this chapter of our lives isn't completely closed, we're writing a new one here in Japan, and I'm excited to see where it leads us.